Every morning you wake up, and you're not just waking up into your day, you're waking up into your past, into the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same predictable patterns. And as long as your mind is tied to what was, your future will look just like yesterday. But what if today you made a different choice? What if today you stepped out of that old identity and decided to become someone new? You see, you don't have to wait for a crisis, a breakdown, or a rock-bottom moment to change. You can begin right now, this very moment, by becoming conscious of your unconscious self, by no longer thinking the same thoughts, feeling the same emotions, or reacting in the same way. Because the moment you start doing that, you interrupt the old program. This is the invitation to become greater than your environment, greater than your body, greater than time. And that's where transformation begins. Not tomorrow, not someday, but today, right here in this moment. The only question is, are you ready to meet the new version of you? Breaking the habit of being your old self requires more than simply wanting change. It demands intention, energy, and repetition. The old self is a collection of memories, habits, beliefs, and emotional responses that have been rehearsed so many times they've become automatic. You think the same thoughts every day, which leads to the same choices, the same behaviors, and ultimately the same outcomes. Even your body becomes addicted to the emotions of the past, stress, resentment, guilt, so much so that it begins to crave them. If you try to change your life but continue to think and feel in the same way, you're only repeating the same cycle with a different face. To truly break this cycle, you must disrupt the neural and emotional patterns that define who you've been. This starts by becoming mindful of the familiar triggers that pull you back into your old personality. Maybe it's a certain tone of voice that makes you defensive, or a daily routine that reinforces passivity, or a mental loop that plays out every time you face uncertainty. When these patterns emerge, instead of reacting, you must pause and make a different choice, even if it's uncomfortable or unfamiliar. In doing so, you begin the process of rewiring your brain, teaching it that new pathways are possible. The body, conditioned to feel a certain way, will resist. It will signal discomfort, restlessness, and even fear. But that's the threshold of transformation. You must teach your body emotionally what your mind already intellectually understands. Each time you override the old impulse with a new, conscious response, you're weakening the old identity and making room for the new. It's not about a single breakthrough moment, but a consistent, deliberate practice of becoming unfamiliar to your old self and familiar with the unknown. Rewiring your brain through intentional thought and emotion is the science of transformation. Every time you think a thought, you make a chemical, and that chemical influences how you feel. If you keep thinking the same negative thoughts, you keep producing the same emotional states, and over time, those emotions become part of your identity. The brain doesn't distinguish between what's real and what's imagined when the emotion is strong enough, which means you can use the power of intentional thought and elevated emotion to create new neural pathways and new states of being. This is not about wishful thinking. It's about repeatedly signaling to the brain a new reality so often that it begins to become your default. When you visualize a future experience with clarity and emotional intensity, when you imagine yourself already living in the new life you desire, the brain begins to wire that experience as if it's happening now. Neurons that fire together, wire together. And if you keep rehearsing the new self long enough, the old self begins to fade. But the emotional component is crucial. Thought alone is not enough. The feeling must match the intention. You must feel inspired, empowered, grateful, connected, states that elevate you beyond your past conditioning. When the emotion behind the vision becomes greater than the emotion behind the memory, the body starts to believe in the new experience. It becomes the unconscious proof that the future you are imagining is not only possible, but real. By aligning thought and feeling, you create coherence in the brain and heart, and that coherence is a signal to the field that you are ready to receive. Over time, this mental and emotional rehearsal becomes the new habit, the new identity, and ultimately, the new life you were always meant to live. Acting as the future version of yourself now is the ultimate embodiment of change. Most people wait for their external circumstances to shift before they give themselves permission to feel differently. They say, "I'll be confident when I get the job," or "I'll be happy when I find the right relationship." But this mindset keeps them stuck in a loop where their reality continues to reflect the past. To create a new future, you have to reverse that process. You have to begin feeling, thinking, and behaving as if the version of you who already has what they desire is alive in the present moment. This means showing up today with the emotional and mental state that matches your vision, not your current environment. If the future you is courageous, creative, disciplined, or joyful, then those qualities must be practiced now, regardless of what's happening around you. The body, conditioned to familiar feelings, will protest at first. It will want to return to stress, doubt, or apathy because those emotions feel safe. But the moment you override that impulse and choose to step into the mindset of the future self, you signal to the brain and body that a new reality is being formed. Every decision, every word, every action becomes a vote for the new you. You begin to close the gap between who you've been and who you're becoming. The future is no longer some distant hope. It becomes something you are actively rehearsing and embodying each day. The more consistently you act from this elevated identity, the faster you align your external world with your internal change. You're no longer responding to life, you're creating it. And creation begins when you live as if the desired outcome is already part of who you are. Your environment does not define who you are unless you let it. Most people allow external conditions, financial status, health, relationships, job roles, to dictate how they think, feel, and act. They live in reaction to their surroundings, believing that change must come from outside for them to feel different inside. But the truth is, transformation occurs when you stop responding to your environment and start generating your internal state independent of it. This means learning to hold a vision and an emotion that does not yet match your current reality. It means waking up each day and deciding how you want to feel, regardless of what is happening around you. When you are no longer a victim of your circumstances, you become the creator of your life. The brain and body begin to trust this new internal order more than the signals coming from the outside world. Over time, your external environment will start to shift to reflect the changes you've made within. This takes discipline, awareness, and consistency. It means choosing calm in the face of chaos, gratitude in the absence of visible progress, and purpose even when the old life tries to pull you back. The moment you give more attention to your inner state than your outer world, you free yourself from the emotional addictions that keep you stuck in the past. You begin to act from a place of intention rather than habit. Your energy changes, your decisions change, and your outcomes follow. No longer shaped by your history or conditioned by your surroundings, you step into alignment with a reality that matches your vision. It's not that your environment no longer matters. It's that it no longer controls you. You've moved from a state of survival to a state of creation, and that is where true freedom begins.